In this tutorial, we will have a look how we can create this menu. And before I jump into the tutorial part, I want to thank Burne for donating me on Patreon. And if you guys want to do that, you can do it. And by that, you will unlock many benefits. So make sure you check that out. And also check out my Udemy courses. I will have the links in the description box. So without further delay, let's dive into this tutorial. To create the UI, first thing we need to create our canvas. And to create our canvas, we need to move over to this hierarchy tab, right click or hit this plus icon. So I'm gonna right click, then go to UI, and in the bottom you can notice canvas. So just click on it in order to create that. And now we're gonna select our canvas in the hierarchy and press down F in order to focus on it. And let's suppose you just want to fit the UI to every game screen, something like in your mobile. In every mobile, if you want to do that and you just want to fit your UI no matter how much the screen size is in the width or in the height. So what we basically need to do for that, we need to select our canvas in the hierarchy, then move over to inspector tab, and in the bottom you can see canvas scalar component, and over there you can notice it says UI scale mode to constant pixel size. So we just want to fit in every screen, so that's why we're going to choose UI scale mode to scale with the screen size. So our canvas just gonna scale up or scale down according to our screen size. And in the X we're gonna put 1920 since this game is landscape mode, so that's why. And in the height or in the Y we're gonna put 1080. 1080, and let's suppose your game in portrait mode, then you can just swipe this value, and that's all. So we just have to do these settings, and this setting is most important, so make sure you just do that. Firstly, you need to select your canvas in the hierarchy, then go over to inspector, then canvas scalar component, and then choose is a constant pixel size to scale with the screen size, and put X in the 1920, and in the Y you can put 1080. And now we're ready to create our menu, basically the UI. To create that, firstly we're gonna create an empty parent game object to keep our UI clean, or to just keep our hierarchy clean, so that's why. So we will select our canvas first. Let's drag it in the top so we can see all the time. And now we're gonna select our canvas. Let's right click on it and let's create an empty child game object, and we're gonna call this game object to something like menu main menu UI. Let's call it main menu UI. And make sure you go over to inspector rect transform, and then click over here and hold down alt on your keyboard, and then select this bottom right one. So now this main menu UI game object just gets as the size of our canvas, as you can notice. And now we are ready to create our the panel and the thing. So we're gonna select our main menu UI. Let's right click on it, then go to UI, and select this panel in the top, you can notice. And now we're gonna select this rect tool in our scene view right over here, and we're gonna hold down alt on our keyboard to resize it from center, as you can notice. And we're gonna replace this with our sprite. To do that, I'm gonna move over to my project tab, assets, and then sprites folder, and I'm gonna move over to my UI2 folder. Of course, I will have a link in the description, you can go and check that out, basically link of these assets, and make sure you just give proper credits to the author. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna select any of them, but before we do, make sure you select all of them by holding down shift, then go over to inspector and choose pixel per unit a less number, something like 16, and to get rid of blurry filter mode, choose point no filter to get rid of blurry. And after doing all of these things, click on this apply button in the bottom right, you can notice. Basically scroll down and you will see that. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select this sprite. So let's select the panel game object underneath our main menu UI, and let's select this sprite and then drag it over to this source image component in the source image right over here. Basically you're gonna see, select your panel, then go over to inspector, then image component, and drag the sprite right over here. So as soon as we drag it, now we can see our panel, basically the image component. and it seems like it's transparent. So what we have to do, we in order to get rid of transparent, we're going to move over to color inside this image component. So just click on it. In the bottom you can see age, and it's set it to 100. So we're gonna set it to 255, or we can just drag it right away to the right side. And as soon as we drag it, now it seems a lot more cool, as you can notice. And we can select our rect tool in the scene view, and we can hold down our alt key on our keyboard to resize it from center, as you can notice. And we can create the two buttons. Inside this panel we're gonna create two buttons. So instead of calling this panel, I'm gonna call this one something like PG. To do that, let's select the panel, go over to inspector, and let's call it PG for background. And let's create two buttons or three buttons. One button just gonna be play button, second button will be about button, and the third button just gonna be exit button or the quit button. And now we're gonna select our PG. No, don't select the main menu UI, because we want our buttons to be inside this PG. So that's why we're gonna select our PG. Let's right click on it, let's go to UI, and then go over to legacy in the bottom, you can notice, and then click on this button. And we're gonna call this button to something like let's call it play button. So let's call this one play button. And we need to increase the size of this button. So let's select the rect tool in the scene view, and we're gonna hold down Alt, so it's gonna resize from center. And we will go over to rect transform, and basically move over to inspector, then rect transform component, then click over here, and we're gonna hold down, and we will select this bottom one, and we're gonna drag it up. And we can just put a text something like it says main menu, or main menu, something like that if you want, but I'm not gonna do it. Let's drag it over here, and we need to change the sprite of this button. To do so, if we move over to inspector image component, we need to replace the source image. To do so, I'm going to move over to my project tab, assets, and then sprites folder, then UI2 folder, and I'm going to select any of them. So I'm going to select this one. We can select this one as well. I guess this just gonna be fine. Okay, so this I have it over here, so I'm gonna select any of them. So let's select our play button underneath our PG in the hierarchy, then go over to inspector, then image component, and we're gonna select that sprite and drag it over to this slot. As soon as we drag it, now we can see our button, and it's kind of seems a little bit weird, so we can just hold down Alt, and we can just resize this something like this much, and this seems pretty much good. But the problem is that we're not able to notice our text inside of this button. To do so, we're gonna select our text inside of this button. Basically click here, and then let's choose the text, go over to inspector, text component, and we're gonna make the font size something around 80 to just make it bigger. And I'm gonna choose another color. So let's scroll down, let's click on this color. I'm gonna choose white or yellow. It's basically up to you, make sure it's visible. So that's why, so change the color according to you like. It's basically up to you. And instead of saying button, I'm gonna say something like this will be play button, so I'm gonna call it play, something like that. And now this seems fine. And font style, you can choose bold, and if you do have any font, then you can just choose it from over here. I don't have, so I'm not gonna do it. And what we're gonna do now, we're gonna duplicate this button, and we can call that button something like about button. So let's select our play button, let's press down Ctrl D to duplicate, and let's move it down a little bit, something over here. And instead of calling this play button 1, we're gonna call this about button. So let's call it about button, about button, about button, something like that. And we also need to change the text inside of this about button. So we're going to select our about button, let's choose the text, and let's call it something like about, like that. And we should decrease our font size a little bit down, so I'm going to choose something around 67. And also I'm going to do the same thing with this one, this text 67. And now that seems pretty much cool. And let's duplicate this button one more time, about button, to just create our exit button. So let's press down Ctrl D. Make sure you select the button first and then press down Ctrl D to duplicate that. And I'm gonna move it something over here, and this should be the exit button, you can say. So instead of calling about button, we're gonna call it exit button, about button 1. So let's call it exit button. And we also need to change the text inside of this button, so let's call it exit. And this seems pretty much cool, as you can notice. So this is we have, let's drag it up, let's drag it something middle, let's drag it in the middle, and let's do our button, let's move it something like this, and let's select the exit button, let's move it over here. I guess this seems pretty much cool, but we can just drag it a little bit down to just make it better, something like this. And we can just put a text inside of this, let's say something like says menu. So let's do that. So we're gonna select our bg game object, basically this this one, because we want the text inside this, so that's why. So we're gonna select our bg, let's right click on it, then go to UI legacy in the bottom, and then choose this text, and make sure you go to rect transform, then click over here, and we're gonna hold down all and select this bottom right one. And now we're gonna drag it up, so we're gonna choose our text and let's move it up something over here. Sorry, so we're gonna drag it here. But the problem is that we're not able to notice our text because we need to increase the font size. To do that, let's move over to inspector, text component, and we're gonna set that font size something like 80. And let's choose this alignment, both of this center, and font style I'm gonna choose bold, and I'm gonna change the color with something else. And instead of saying new text, we're gonna say something like main menu, or let's call it simply menu, something like this, as you can notice. And I'm gonna replace the font later. I hope you get the idea. And make sure you select the parent game object. So in our case, this will be main menu UI, and we're gonna make this one basically we will make this prefab, so we're gonna have the copy of it and we don't need to work from scratch. So we're gonna select our main menu UI underneath our canvas game object in the hierarchy, and let's drag it over to this assets folder, or you can just create a separate prefabs folder in order to turn it into a prefab. And I already have a prefab folder, as you can notice inside my project tab and assets. So I'm gonna select my main menu UI underneath my canvas game object in the hierarchy and drag it over to this prefabs folder in order to turn it into a prefab. And if we just go ahead and then click on this play button in order to play our game, you will able to notice this just not gonna do anything else, because we need to hook this button with some certain function, so it's just gonna do those things. So if we just go ahead, click on this play button, it's doing nothing. And this about button, I will have a video in the description, you can go and check that out, how you can just make this useful, this button. So I hope you get the idea, and let's get out of play mode.